I've been an early morning fisherman my whole life. Lakes, rivers, hidden streams. Didn't matter. If it had water and something with gills living in it. I was there before sunrise with a thermos of coffee and a tackle box that's older than I am. But after what happened last September, I haven't gone fishing alone again. Not once, not ever. See, where I live in northern Minnesota, there's a lake that locals call Coldwater Vale. It's not on any tourist map, not even on most local maps. People say the lake moves, not literally of course, but the shoreline changes, water levels shift overnight, sounds echo wrong. It's a creepy place, but the fish, huge. I used to kayak there every other weekend, always alone. I loved the quiet. The week everything happened, I was stressed out from work and decided I needed that calm, peaceful morning on the water. I packed my gear, strapped the kayak to the truck, and left before dawn. The sky was still that deep pre-sunrise blue when I parked at the narrow trail leading down to the lake. Right away, something felt off. There were fresh boot prints in the mud, deep, heavy, and leading toward the water. But what unsettled me were the other prints. Barefoot, human shape, but larger than any normal foot should be. Toes splayed unnaturally wide like a frog's. I figured maybe a drunk local wandered around. Not my business. I should have gone home, but I didn't. I reached the water just as the fog began crawling over the surface. Thick fog, too heavy for that time of morning. I pushed the kayak in, settled inside, and started paddling out to the center. The silence felt wrong. Not peaceful. Wrong. No birds, no insects, no breeze. Just the sound of the paddle cutting through water that felt thicker than usual, like syrup. After 20 minutes of fishing, I noticed something strange. My bobber wasn't moving naturally. There was no tug, no fish nibbling. It was drifting, sideways, against the current, against the wind. Then it stopped completely, just froze in place. I reeled it in quickly, thinking the line snagged. But when the bobber got close, I saw something wet and pale clamped onto my line. It wasn't a fish, it was a hand. Small, human, but bloated white, like it had been underwater for days. The fingers were curled tightly around my fishing line, embedded into the skin like hooks. I screamed and jerked the rod so hard the line snapped. The hand sank, trailing bubbles. My first instinct was to paddle back, hard, fast, but then I saw someone on the shoreline, a man, standing perfectly still, facing me. I squinted, trying to make out details through the fog. He wasn't moving, not even swaying or shifting weight like a normal person, just frozen like a silhouette carved out of stone. I cupped my hands around my mouth and shouted, "Hey, are you okay?" No response. I shouted again. Still nothing. Something in my gut twisted. I didn't want to get near that figure, but I had to get off the water. I started paddling toward a different part of the shore, away from him. That's when I heard it. A splash behind me, then another, then hands slapping water, fast, like someone swimming directly toward me. I turned around. Something was swimming toward my kayak, but not like a swimmer. It moved with awful, jerky motions, like its limbs weren't bending right. I paddled harder than I ever have in my life, the kayak rocking beneath me. "Go, go, go," I repeated to myself like a mantra. I hit shallow water and jumped out before the kayak fully stopped, pulling it halfway onto the shore. I didn't even look behind me. I just ran up the bank, tripping over roots and branches. But before I reached the trees, I froze. The man I had seen earlier, he was now standing 10 feet in front of me, blocking the trail. Except he wasn't standing, not normally. His head was tilted far back at an impossible angle. His mouth hung open, wider than a jaw should ever stretch. His skin was grayish, slick. His shirt and pants dripped lake water. His eyes, I still see those eyes at night, wide, bloodshot, but the pupils were huge. So huge the eyes looked almost completely black. He whispered something. I couldn't understand a single word. I stepped back slowly, and he stepped forward. That's when I ran. I didn't think, didn't breathe. I just sprinted down a different deer trail, branches slapping my face. I could hear him behind me, wet footsteps hitting the dirt, not running but sliding, dragging, like he wasn't used to walking on land. I reached a thick patch of pine trees and dropped behind a fallen log, trying to stay silent. My chest burned, my legs shook. I tried not to breathe too loud. The lake went silent again, too silent. Then, right above me, I heard, "You saw!" His voice didn't sound human. It gurgled, like the words were bubbling out through water. I covered my mouth with both hands, squeezing my eyes shut. After After 10 seconds that felt like an hour, his footsteps moved away. Slow, wrong, sloppy. When I was sure he was gone, I bolted for my truck. I didn't stop until I reached the driver's seat, slammed the door, and sped out of there so fast I left half my gear behind. I didn't go back for it. Not even the kayak. Not after what happened that night. I made it home in record time. I parked crooked in my own driveway because my hands were shaking too badly to steer straight. I kept telling myself I must have imagined most of it. The fog, the hand, the man on the shore. Trauma plays tricks on your mind, right? But no matter how hard I tried to reason it away, I couldn't forget the last thing I heard. "You saw!" My whole body shivered. Inside, I locked every door and window. I live alone in a small house, barely 900 square feet. You'd think the small size would make me feel safer. It didn't. Every shadow felt like it was breathing. Every creak felt like a warning. My clothes were still damp from the lake, and I could smell the faint scent of algae on me. I showered, changed, and sat on my couch, trying to calm my nerves, but something didn't feel right. My living room window was slightly open. I never leave that window open. I stepped toward it carefully, trying to convince myself I must have cracked it open earlier and forgotten. I reached out to close it, but then I saw it. A wet palm print on the glass. Large, wide. The fingers spread unnaturally far apart, just like those barefoot prints by the lake. A chill ran straight down my spine. I closed the window, locked it, and pulled the curtains shut. This time I double-checked every single lock in the house. For a few hours, nothing happened. I tried watching TV, but even the laugh tracks sounded eerie, like the voices were echoing. Around 11:30 p.m., I finally felt myself getting tired. My body was still tense, but exhaustion was winning. I turned off the lights, went to my room, and lay down. I kept the lamp on. Something about total darkness felt wrong. I remember staring at the ceiling, my heartbeat slowing, my eyelids getting heavy. And then, thump, something hit the outside wall of my house. I shot upright. Another thump, stronger, then another, then a wet dragging sound across the siding. I dialed 911. My hands were trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. As soon as the dispatcher answered, I whispered, "There's someone outside my house. I think they followed me home." Before she could ask anything, something slammed into my back porch door, hard enough to rattle the entire frame. I ran to my bedroom, locked the door, and grabbed the baseball bat I keep under my bed. I wasn't about to open that door for anything. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line. Then came the sound I'll never forget. A wet, gurgling exhale right by my bedroom window. Slow, drawn out, like something trying to breathe through water. I whispered, "Please hurry." Something scraped down the glass. Long fingernails. Wet, heavy. I backed away until my back hit the opposite wall. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure it could hear it. Then, tap, tap, tap on the window. 3 slow, rhythmic knocks, followed by a voice I recognized instantly. "Let me explain." It was the same voice that whispered behind the fallen log earlier. Twisted, watery, wrong. My entire body froze. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no, no. Open!" Another tap. "Door!" The dispatcher was still on the line, telling me officers were minutes away, but it felt like hours. Then something big hit the house roof. Crawling, heavy, wet. I could hear the weight shifting, moving slowly toward the window above my bed. Creak, creak. Something was on the roof, dragging itself inch by inch. Then the footsteps stopped. Silence. For a moment, I hoped, prayed it had left, but then I heard it breathing above me, right over my room. Slow, bubbling breaths. I felt tears forming. The dispatcher kept saying, "Stay with me, sir. Officers are arriving." But all I could think about was that thing crashing right through my ceiling. Then, sirens. The creature, or whatever it was, suddenly scurried across the roof. Fast this time, almost panicked. Something slid down the shingles and hit the ground. I didn't dare peek out the window. I didn't dare look anywhere. A moment later, banging on my front door. "Police!" I sprinted out of my room and opened the door. 3 officers stormed in with flashlights drawn. I told them everything, what I saw, what I heard, what followed me. One officer checked the backyard. Another ran the flashlight across the roof line. They found footprints on the shingles. Wide, barefoot, not human. They also found a long smear of moisture leading away from my porch and into the forest, like something crawled back toward the lake. I barely slept that night even with the cops outside. outside. And what happened the next morning? That's the part I still don't like talking about. The sun couldn't rise fast enough the next morning. I don't think I slept more than a few minutes at a time, constantly jerking awake at every sound, every shifting floorboard, every distant owl, every gust of wind brushing the siding. The officers told me they'd patrol the area for a few hours after sunrise, but as soon as the light started creeping through the blinds, they packed up and left. One of them suggested it was probably a trespasser on something, but even he didn't sound convinced. The footprints on the roof alone were enough to unsettle any trained professional. I made coffee, but the mug shook in my hand so badly I spilled half of it on the counter. I kept replaying the night in my head. That voice, that breathing, those roof prints. Something wasn't right. Something followed me home, and it wasn't human. Around 8 a.m., after building up the courage, I decided I needed to get out of the house. Air, sunlight, anything. I stepped outside and walked slowly around the property. In the dirt near the back porch, I saw more prints. Bare, wide, webbed-looking, fresh. They weren't there when the police were here. My stomach dropped hard. I backed up and nearly tripped over my own feet when something else caught my eye. Something caught in the bushes near my shed. A piece of fabric, black flannel, the same type the thing wore at the lake, except the fabric wasn't dry. It dripped. I didn't touch it, not even with a stick. I immediately went back inside and locked the door. My thoughts were racing. That thing, whatever it was, returned after the police left, came close to the house again, maybe even watched me through the window before sunrise. I needed help, real help, so I grabbed my keys and backed out of the driveway. But before I left the street, I saw something that made me hit the brakes. My kayak, the old heavy kayak I left at Coldwater Vale, was sitting at the edge of the woods behind my house. The same mud, the same scratches. No mistake. Someone or something dragged it miles through forest to return it to me. I got out of my truck slowly, almost expecting it to be a hallucination. But no, it was real, solid, wet, and inside it, lying across the seat, was something that made my skin crawl. A small, waterlogged hand, the same one that was clamped on my fishing line, not attached to anything, just placed there, like a message. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled backward, shaking, whispering, "No, no, no." Then I saw movement. In the tree line, behind the kayak, a shadow, a human shape, bent, head too far forward, arms too long, watching me. I froze completely. The figure took one slow, deliberate step forward. Water dripped from its fingertips. Its joints cracked loudly, unnaturally, like they'd grown stiff from being underwater too long. It didn't run. It didn't lunge. It just whispered, "You saw." That same bubbling voice. I jumped into my truck so fast I dropped my keys between the seat and console. My hands scrambled blindly until I grabbed them, started the engine, and floored it. I didn't look back. Not once. I drove straight to my brother's house in the next town, shaking so badly I had to sit in the truck for 10 minutes before I could explain what happened. He didn't believe everything. Who would? But he believed enough to let me stay. I reported everything to wildlife authorities, environmental agencies, even the sheriff. None of them found anything at the lake. They drained part of Coldwater Vale 2 weeks later. And what they found in the 𝙃𝙖𝙨 layers, human bones, lots of them, some decades old, some newer. They told the public it was an old dumping site from the 80s. They didn't mention the teeth marks. They didn't mention the long webbed footprints left in the mud the next morning. I sold my house, moved 3 states away. I don't fish anymore. I can't stand the thought of still water. Even puddles make me uneasy. And sometimes, I swear I still hear that voice when I'm trying to sleep. A wet gurgle, a whisper. "You saw." And if there's one thing I've learned, creatures that live in deep, dark lakes don't like witnesses.